Maybe I should put these in. Okay, hopefully that is better. Good morning, Ryan, Melissa, Deb, Candy. Okay, hopefully everybody can see and hear, and we'll get this walkie-talkie off. Today I am focusing on GLP-1s, and I spent so much time learning about insulin and its role in the body and diabetes that it really is heavy in that information, but I think that information is super critical when you're looking at GLP-1s and understanding how they work. And anyways, I hope you enjoyed my notes. And also, oh, I meant to show you guys. Okay, so I got my notes. And let's see, I can't see any chat. Okay, there it is. Yes, you can see in here. Okay, good. On my biome test, I explained kind of something about this last week during the GI tract one where I talked about BPC 157, how it helps the GI tract. Anyway, so my poop test came. So I'm probably going to make a little video filming the process of, I mean, not the whole process, but majority of the process of how this works, and then the results when they come, so that we can understand how they're assessing GI and gut leakage and stuff like that. Okay, good. All right, well, let's get into it. People always ask what I'm walking at. I'm walking at a 4 incline and I'm walking at a 3, but I might actually reduce it a little bit, the speed. Maybe we'll back it down to like 2.8 or something. Already feeling winded. Yeah, exactly, Michelle, it's poop in a box. Um, luckily, I don't have to open up that box. And okay. So when I do these, we also create a blog on the website, which will be linked below in the description notes of all of my notes. And then we just take this live walkie-talkie and embed it there also. So if you just later today, if you want to see it all together, it'll be on the website. Just to give us some time to, you know, do the next processes of all of this. Also, if you ask about where to buy peptides or how to use the peptides, that's not what I share during these walkie-talkies. We have an app that's going to be linked in the description as well. It's called, we refer to it as the Skin and Wellness app. I don't share its name because I just don't want any issues, but you can follow the link in the description if you want to check that out. And also to the website, and at the website, you'll see more information about the app as well. Okay. So I think all of us are really familiar right now with the GLP-1s, the semaglutide, liraglutide, tirzepatide. There's actually quite a few, but really we're just talking about these peptides that help manage weight, bring down weight, make you less insulin resistant. And these all came about obviously in the attempt to help diabetics and people who are chronically overweight. And that's great, right? Let's take care of the population first that's going to have the most severe issues with being overweight. But I've found for myself that the GLP-1s are pretty awesome, even when you're not like morbidly obese, like you don't fall into that category. I know that they've been really great for me, and that's why I share about them. And then that's what took me down this path of learning about peptides. So we're going to do like a deep dive into like diabetes and insulin and how that whole system works. And maybe some of you are already really familiar with that. And I'm sorry, this is boring, but I found it interesting because, you know about diabetes, it's about blood sugar, that people apparently can't get blood sugar out of their systems. their pancreas fails, all that. So I found doing this research really helped me understand more about it. Okay, so right now, currently, about 38 million Americans have diabetes, which means about 10% of our society, which is crazy. Type 2 diabetes. We're not talking about type 1. Type 1 only impacts such a small percentage of people who deal with diabetes. It's really type 2. And type 1 is where they just don't produce insulin. They're born that way. They just don't, their pancreas doesn't make insulin from the start. It has nothing to do with their diet. That's why you see it in children. And, you know, before 1922, when they were able to start using insulin, so insulin is a peptide, if you didn't know that, one of the first peptides synthesized and one of the most widely used, probably the most widely used peptide in the world. But obviously that was a game changer for specifically type 1 diabetics. And, you know, in the 20s, 30s, there really probably wasn't really anybody that was type 2 diabetic. That has definitely come from our environment of eating, our food changing, whatever. But really, insulin was a life-saving peptide, a miracle in the 20s when for childhood diabetes, type 1 diabetes. I mean, otherwise the children would die, get super sick, and just go into failure because their blood sugar was just way too high. Okay, so, and in the United States right now, type 2 diabetes mostly develops in people over 45 years old. However, the rate in children and teens right now is skyrocketing. Endocrinologists, they never saw type 2 diabetic children, and now it's astronomically on the rise, which is super concerning because, again, this is all coming from just the environment of food choices, and how our diet, how our culture has been so manipulated by thinking that certain things were okay for us, and now we're seeing that they're just not. Hey, you guys, welcome. Oh, thank you for my early birthday wish, Tyler. It is a birthday week. Monday night, I went out with some girlfriends. We got Burmese. If you've never had Burmese food, you guys have to try it. It was amazing. Then we did Chinese massages because you guys know how I like that in a group. And then last night, Jason and I went out with a couple, and that was a nice time too. And then this weekend, actually, Jason and I are going to go to San Francisco, and he's going to take me clubbing. So I'm going to go dancing. So I think that'll be fun. So it is a fun birthday week. Thanks, guys. And being off of Instagram has been extremely soothing for me. So good things. Okay. So what is diabetes? Diabetes is a chronic condition that affects your body, affects how your body turns food into energy, right? So it's considered an endocrine disease. And basically, it's just your body can't regulate blood sugar. And the body breaks down most food into sugar. So you have glucose, and it releases it into your bloodstream. And when blood sugar levels rise, it signals our pancreas to release insulin. So insulin is made in the pancreas. As blood sugar goes up, there's a signaling to the pancreas to pump out insulin to help resolve the height in blood sugar. So what is insulin? Okay, so insulin is a peptide hormone, and it's secreted by beta cells found in our pancreatic isolates. Okay, so I know when I read this, you guys are like, what? So I do have pictures that I put together. I'm going to try to like read it and then try to use my finger to help navigate the picture. Thanks, guys. Oh, from New Orleans. Thanks. Thank you, guys. All the well wishes. Birthday weeks, birthday months. They're always fun. Okay. So essentially, sorry. So insulin is made in these isolates inside your pancreas. And to maintain normal sugar levels, it basically, so your cell is a place to put sugar. Okay, and that's what insulin wants to do. So when insulin is taking sugar out of the blood, it's not just storing it away somewhere typically. It's the goal is to push that sugar into your cell so that you can make it, you can convert it into ATP. That's where we get energy from, right? So the ideal situation is you eat something, your blood sugar goes up, your healthy pancreas is told to make insulin, and then you have these receptors on your membrane. These little, just think of it as a receptor. It needs, the only way it's going to open the cell to allow in glucose is when that insulin fits nicely on that receptor. So that's why they call it like a key. And then sugar can flow into your cell. And that's great because you have storage systems inside your cell for storing sugar. So it can either be used to make energy or it can be stored for future use to make energy. And I don't know if you're going to be able to see my little pictures, but here we have a healthy pancreas. We got insulin, and up here, insulin fits into this little receptor, and then it allows the sugar to flow into the cell. Okay. Don't worry, these will be on the website if you want to go look at them. You want to go admire the artwork. So the other thing about sugar is the molecule is large, and so it's not permeable across the cellular membrane. So we talk a lot sometimes about permeability, especially in skincare, and what are small molecules that can actually, like when we talk about hyaluronic acid, and you'll see hyaluronic acids that have high molecular weight and small molecular weight. The idea there is that some of those smaller molecular weights can actually penetrate your cell membrane, making it permeable for them. But with glucose, with sugar, apparently it's too big of a molecule, so it can't just flow into the cells. And that makes sense because your cell wants to regulate itself. So if it was just always getting a barrage of sugar flowing in, then there'd have to be another mechanism for maintaining that, right? And the mechanism for controlling sugar is, again, insulin. So there's kind of two different sugars in our body. It's really one's a sugar and one's a starch. So the two things that insulin's constantly trying to balance is glucose, which is a monosaccharide. So it's one, and that's the sugar molecule, which is big. And that's the one, and it's a carbohydrate, it's a simple carbohydrate. And that is what we use to make ATP once insulin moves it into our cell. The other one is glycogen. So glycogen is a polysaccharide, meaning it's many molecules or many of these molecules chained together. And so it's a chain of glucose, a chain of sugars. And that one, glycogen is stored in your liver and it's considered a starch. Okay, so glycogen is a starch, it has multiple sugars in it, stored in your liver. And I have this other picture, and basically it just shows you what a healthy situation is doing with insulin, what a type 1 diabetic situation with insulin is, and what a type 2 diabetic situation with insulin is. And basically the biggest difference is that in the healthy one, everything's working right. The receptor's receiving the insulin, opening up the pathway for glucose to flow into the cell. Perfect. Type 1, they just don't make insulin. So the receptor's there waiting for insulin, but the door to the cell for sugar is never going to open because they don't make insulin, which is why they inject insulin. And then type 2, you are making insulin, and your pancreas is actually upping the amount of insulin it's making because those receptors on your cells start to become resistant to the insulin. So a lot of times in peptide talks, like I'm always talking about like the way they're supposed to work is with this whole idea of optimizing your cells and making that communication work better. And here's like a perfect example of the failure of the communication or the receptor becoming desensitized to the insulin levels. And maybe this happens in people as they age. I haven't found, people don't, there's nothing specific online that says why type 2 diabetes happens. Like, there's nothing that says, oh, you have a genetic marker for it, or this happened, and so that's the reason your receptors became more sensitive. But I think if we just think about biology and ourselves, if you're eating a really high sugar diet all the time, and your body is pumping out a lot of insulin all the time, you might imagine that those receptors might become desensitized to it. They don't know why that is, but I'm just thinking, like, with a lot of things that we eat or drink or become desensitized to, I think there could be that scenario where it's like, if you're just always eating a really high sugar carb diet, then your body is always making insulin, and perhaps those receptors on the cells, they just time out. They're just like, we don't notice it anymore. It's always here. We don't notice any difference. So I don't know why that happens, but when you start to look at peptides and a bunch of peptides and how they work to improve your life or to improve that cell membrane, you can understand that probably as you desensitize yourself to insulin by diet, mostly, and lack of movement, it's like those two things go together, then what ends up happening is you find a lot of dysfunction in the body systems anyways. So as you become heavier, it's probably just like this really bad domino effect, where as you become heavier, your body's becoming more resistant to insulin. And on top of it, your cells are becoming less optimized because all of the other functions that keep mitochondria healthy and optimized, they start to break down. So you can imagine that this floodgate of sugar always in your system is not only making you pump in insulin nonstop and desensitizing your receptors, but your cells are becoming less optimized, weaker, they're not functioning correctly. So I think it becomes this like massive problem. And that's the reason people are loving peptides, because you kind of get back to the root of the problem, start optimizing the cells, start getting their communication to work better. And now all of a sudden, all of these things that are kind of rooted in the cellular dysfunction start to improve. Okay. So now we know what type 1 diabetes is. We know what type 2 diabetes is. We know what insulin is supposed to be doing. Okay. So what's, maybe you don't know, but people might be like, well, what's the problem with blood just being in your sugar? Well, like everything, the body wants to keep a homeostatic situation, right? And when your blood is full of sugar for too long and you can't bring down those levels, then these can cause serious health problems such as heart disease, vision loss, and kidney disease. You can imagine it taxes the kidney a lot because your kidney's trying to clean your blood, and now you have sugar blood. I always imagine like pixie sticks flowing through the blood, and it's just like going to get wiped out from that too. It's really sad, but you look at these charts, and these are just United States numbers, by the way. And so this is going to be 2030. So we're not far from that, right? 6 more years. So in 2015, 11% of the US had type 2 diabetes. In 2030, they're projecting 15% will have diabetes, which is just, it's not getting better. We have insulin. We know that eating sugar and not moving is going to make you pre-diabetic and then eventually lead into diabetes, where your pancreas just gives out and will not make insulin anymore. But it doesn't seem to be slowing. There you are. Okay. So it's really scary. And I think that that trend is just going to continue going, which is why these GLP-1s are having so much money thrown at them. So Nord Novik or whatever, they're the ones who make Ozempic. And Ozempic right now is trapped in, and semaglutide is the peptide in Ozempic. So semaglutide is the GLP-1 that they branded Ozempic. And it's on track to be the most profitable drug ever manufactured. And Wall Street is just all over it. They've invested so much money into the production of Ozempic because it's so effective. And with these kinds of numbers in society, you can understand that if we don't do something to get people from becoming type 2 diabetic, it's going to be horrific. It's already horrific. People die too early. They lose limbs from diabetes. I mean, that's the other side effect. You get feet cut off. I mean, it's just because your circulation can't get tissues oxygen. It's horrible. It's a horrible disease. And it's one that is curable and it's one that is avoidable. But because it's so much based in human choice, it's definitely been something that is hard to get people to change their lives. And insulin, although life-saving in the 1920s, insulin is just a Band-Aid. Insulin is just basically, it's not even a Band-Aid in a way, because it's making the person more sick eventually. So you have this person who's heavy, they're type 2 diabetic, now they have to have insulin injected all the time. And insulin is just going to continue to store that sugar away. So it's really hard for a lot of these people. You know, they're told they're type 2 diabetic. They're told they have to take insulin. And then they're told, but you need to lose weight. And these people like struggle. They can't lose weight. A lot of the reports and everything I've watched on it, it's just like people who become type 2 diabetic who have to go on insulin, it's really a death sentence, just a longer one, because they won't lose weight on insulin. So although insulin, amazing for type 1 diabetic children, life-saving, and obviously will extend the life of a type 2 diabetic, it's actually not getting to the root problem of why these people can't get back that sensitivity or get their pancreas to make insulin anymore, right? So I think that's why these GLP-1s are like literally maybe the most effective drug that's come on the market ever since we went over 2000. Like, these are really powerful, and I've used 2 of them, so I can personally speak to the power of them. And I would also say, there's about 100 million people in the United States who are pre-diabetic. So obviously there's all these pre-diabetic people, meaning that their receptors are becoming less sensitive to insulin. So our goal is to have a really high sensitivity to insulin. And the opposite of that is insulin resistance, which means that little receptor on your cells is not being able to see where the insulin is. They're not able to join. And by not being able to connect, they can never open up the cell to use the sugar. Excuse me. Okay. So there's another thing in our body that works the opposite of insulin. It's called glucagon. 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 So you have insulin versus glucagon. Sorry, you guys, if you ask questions, I have a hard time seeing them from here. Judith says, I have been on Mounjaro for almost 18 months. All studies that are coming out are about how good the drugs are. Yeah. Amen to that, Judith. Anybody who wants to fearmonger about the GLP-1s, they're completely missing the point. They should be out there fear mongering about type 2 diabetes and obesity. That's literally killing more Americans than anything else in this country. So if they want to fear monger about the slow digestion or some of the stomach aches that people get or the nausea from taking the GLP-1, I'm like, what is the alternative? Death? Like, well, I mean, I don't even understand these people. Like, literally, we're talking about life and death, and they're talking about stomach aches and nausea. And I'm like, suck it up, buttercup. Like, get on the drug and drop the weight. Otherwise, you're just going to live the rest of your life sad, whatever left you have of that life, sad, sick. You can't enjoy anything. It's just sad. So whenever I see the fear mongering going on about the GLP-1s, it blows my mind. It's like, it's so illogical. Okay. I'll get to the GLP-1s that I preferred. I kind of like do like a top-down approach when I do my notes. Okay, so insulin and glucagon are both hormones, and they're the two that battle it out for controlling blood sugar. So glucagon comes into the picture to raise blood sugar when we might be low. And then insulin again sees blood sugar and wants to take it out if it's too high. And they try to balance it, keeping it happy. So they're constantly like two hormones that are doing that together. Yeah, Judith says it is about body shaming. It is that being obese will eventually. Yeah, that's a whole crazy thing too. Like, and I would also say this. I understand why the fat positivity movement happened. I get it. People were feeling so horrible about themselves. People felt like there's literally nothing I can do to get this weight off. So stop telling me to lose weight. Just accept me for being larger. And I empathize with that. So I get why that kind of spawned. It spawned from a lack of ability to change anything. It spawned because there was a lack of tools. And now that we have the GLP-1s, I think you'll see, number one, I think you're going to see the US population go way down in weight. So there will be less super heavy people. I think also there should be no shame in it. Okay, like I look at the United States and I think about our biology and I think we have so many calories abundant and our bodies are made to find the most calories possible. Like we are engineered to eat and find food. And we're also made to find things that really pleasure us and hit on all of those markers in our brain so we feel good and we feel satiated and excited and salivate. So I almost feel like the United States, we're all alcoholics and we're all living inside of a bar. And so when you flip it like that, I hope people who are overweight realize I'm not looking at them thinking, now why can't you get yourself together? And you're an alcoholic and you live in the bar, but just stop drinking. Like I totally understand why people are trapped in these really bad situations. But now with these tools, the GLP-1s, I feel like now there's no excuse. Now there's no excuse to be obese. There's no excuse to feel trapped in a body that you don't want to be in. There's no excuse to be super unhealthy because your weight is just out of control. These are actual working tools. And you don't have to be a psycho about counting your calories and measuring your macros. You know what I mean? Like, I know that some people are amazing at that, and that's great. People find a lot of power in that kind of control. But if you just don't want to be fat anymore, then freaking inject the GLP-1. Yes, you'll have nausea, but like anything, there's no side effect. There's no side effect to anything. I mean, watch the Viagra commercials and listen to the laundry list of side effects on that. And guys still want to pop the Viagra. we want them to. Okay, so we got glucagon and insulin, and glucagon is there to raise, right? So like if you're, what is it, hypoglycemic, and you don't have a lot of blood sugar, then glucagon is going to come in. It's a hormone, and it's going to raise it up so that you also don't like pass out or die. Like blood sugar is important. So glucagon releases alpha cells in the pancreas and acts on the liver to increase blood glucose. Okay, so I'm going to explain that really quickly. So I feel like my pictures are never big enough to show you, so that's why I'm glad we put them on the blog. Okay, so both insulin and glucagon are created in the pancreas and begin with beta or alpha cells that are triggered in these pancreatic isolates, okay? So when blood sugar is low, alpha cells release glucagon in the pancreas. The pancreas has stores of glycogen. Remember how we talked about the starch being the multi-chained sugar and glucose just being a single sugar? Okay, so the liver is where you store the starch. That's where you store the polysaccharides. And that's the reason you'll hear this term fatty liver, because we store all the polysaccharides and starches into our liver. So when glucagon goes on, it goes to the liver, it pulls out these polysaccharides, these starches, it breaks them up into single sugars, into glucose. So we're storing these chains of multiple sugars in our liver. When our blood sugar goes down, then glucagon is activated by our pancreas, and it triggers the release and the breakdown of all these individual sugars into our blood. So then we stay alive. Okay. Yeah, see, I have this great picture, but you're not going to be able to really see it here. So again, just go to the website if you want to see the art. You wish you were my starch? Oh, I think it's funny. Okay. So here's like a little picture of our pancreas. And again, you're not going to really be able to see it here. But in our pancreas, we have these little things called isolates. And that's where the alpha and beta cells are. And that's where the activation happens of whether it's going to be glucagon or insulin. So in last week's walkie-talkie, we talked about, so peptides are short chain amino acids and they aid in cellular communication and function. Peptides are used to optimize cellular communication. And again, insulin is the most widely used peptide, discovered in the 1920s and first used, I believe, on a 14-year-old boy in 1922. Okay. Okay, I covered all this. Okay, so now we kind of understand it. We have insulin, we have glucagon. Obviously, if you are a diabetic with high blood sugar already, the idea that glucagon would turn on and also start releasing starch, which is going to amplify, again, your blood sugar, is insane. But this is also where the dysfunction comes in. And the big problem is that glucagon is typically turned on, releasing the starch out of your liver into your blood, only exacerbating this entire situation with insulin not being able to bring down the blood sugar and you already having a ton of blood, a ton of sugar in your blood. Oh, thanks, Swift. Okay. So along comes 2020. These have been around. These GLP-1s have been around for a while. Not like for a long time, but like liraglutide was like first being used in like 2005. Oh my gosh, Glam Travel Life. I think this is the most I've ever gotten on any live, and I've done thousands of Thank you. She says, so happy I found your channel. Started semaglutide a week ago and starting CJC. I'm the Impa blend next week. Okay, awesome. I really hope you love the Impa in your life. Literally, it is game changing for me at night. I'm always sad on the nights that, you know, I have to cycle off. I'm just like, I just want Impa. Another amazing peptide, especially for us as women in our 40s, struggling to go to sleep, which is also hormonal, and not being able to recover from the gym. The Impa has been crazy effective for me. Okay, so we talked about glucagon, again, turning on the starch and releasing it into the blood, exacerbating the issue that most people who already have high blood sugar experience. So GLP-1s, GLP-1 agonists, they stand for glucagon like peptide 1 agonists, okay? So the reason the GLP-1s are super effective for weight management is because they stop glucagon from turning on. Okay, so number one, they shut down the extra starch that glucagon wants to release into your blood. So do you remember when we were talking about MOTS-C a few weeks ago? And there's this CoA enzyme in your nucleus that when it's on, it's just telling your body to like store long chain amino acids, put them in the liver, hence starches getting poured into the liver, and adipose tissue, just like when that's turned on, you're only storing. Who was that? I just saw a car drive through my drive-through. I don't know. Maybe it was like an Amazon delivery or something. So when we were talking about the MOTS-C and how that enzyme is turned on, and how if you use MOTS-C, it actually turns off that enzyme, which would tell you to store, and keeps you in a burning state, you can understand also with the GLP-1s, shutting down that glucagon, turning on. I mean, if you're overweight or you have weight to lose, there's nothing wrong with turning off the glucagon. Like, you don't need glucagon constantly amplifying your blood sugar. Now, again, if you're super tiny and you don't have a lot of blood sugar, then, you know, and you're hypoglycemic, then you don't want your glucagon being turned off because you'll probably die. Okay. But the other thing that the GLP-1 does is it also gets your pancreas to induce insulin secretion. Okay, I will just point this out because this was a huge question for me and I didn't have time to really dive down that rabbit hole and try to investigate why this is. But have you guys ever wondered, now that I've explained insulin and the hypersensitivity or the lack of sensitivity to it, have you ever wondered why using insulin would ever help a type 2 diabetic? I mean, when you sit there and you think about it, they've shut down their insulin and they've shut down their receptor, right? The receptor doesn't even notice the insulin anymore. So it's interesting that even giving them insulin is going to do very much for them because their insulin sensitivity is not there. So the goal is to get our insulin sensitivity back up so that all of the receptors on our membranes are like, yes, we see insulin. Yes, we know what to do, rather than like only a handful of them being able to function. Okay, so GLP-1 stands for glucagon-like peptide 1 agonist. And basically it's shutting down the glucagon, it's turning on insulin secretion, and it also slows down your gastric by emptying. So like when I was on, I guess I'll jump into this right now. So I used liraglutide first, known as Saxenda, because We were able to get that from vendors overseas. And it was good. I mean, like, I noticed its effect when I would use it, but the problem with it is that it has a really short half-life. So you have to use liraglutide every day. And I think the biggest problem with that is compliance. I know I wasn't compliant about it. I think even when I was trying to be good on liraglutide, I probably only did 3 injections a week. And I would do them at night so that I could sleep through the nausea, which is a very typical way of using these. So for instance, when I switched to semaglutide in July 2023, I knew that there would be this nausea effect because I had tried liraglutide. But the thing that's amazing about semaglutide is you only need to do an injection once a week. So that's huge because then compliance with that goes sky high, right? Because it has a 7-day half-life. And it actually builds, like accumulates in your system so that around week 4 or 5, you're kind of like stabilized with your dose and kind of its ability to optimize the cells. Okay, so GLP-1 is also a hormone. Now, when you use it in this way, where it's being synthetically made, it's being made to last longer. So remember how last week we talked about BPC 157 in the small intestine, which was actually amazing because this kind of fits in great. And it's not like I had some master plan of like doing research and unveiling these notes in a certain way. But remember those epithelial cells that are in our intestinal lining? That's where GLP-1 comes from. So like when we eat food and it's being absorbed in it, that's also triggering GLP-1 to release. And so that's great because GLP-1 can decrease appetite. So this is where that whole gut-brain axis thing happens. You're eating, you're getting the nutrition, your body's like, hey, we're feeling full, we're getting food. And so it sends that GLP-1 out and hits the brain, and the brain's like, okay, let's not be hungry anymore. And then it hits the stomach, and in order to make you stay full for longer, it slows down your digestion. So this is where a lot of people complain about using the GLP-1s. Maybe they've always been regular their whole life. And if you watched last week's peptide talk, you know that I have not. So I did not notice this as a big side effect or negative for me. But you do get constipated, and like you will kind of get like a protruded stomach if you were eating a lot. And I mean, I'm sure I would have weeks worth. Yeah, weeks worth. So I can understand that some people, this might make them feel very uncomfortable. I think what it should also do is just remind you don't need to eat. And then that's the other problem with the GLP-1s. And as you watched me lose so much weight on them and get too low, there is this battle of when you're using them, making sure that you're eating so much protein so that you can stay healthy and not compromise a ton of your lean body mass or your hair or your bone density. Especially people who are going to be on them a lot longer than I was. I really wasn't on it very long to get the benefits that I wanted, but people who have a lot more weight to lose will be on them much longer. And so I can understand people feeling I need to eat meat. I know I need to eat meat, but I feel like my gastric tube is not emptying. And I think that's where some of the problem becomes, because you know you're supposed to eat healthy, and semaglutide gives you this huge, or all of the GLP-1s give you this huge sense of control, so you can make better choices. But even when you go to make the better choice, you don't have a huge appetite and you don't really want to keep eating. Like I would sit down take like 3 bites of something and be like, okay, I'm done. Like literally, I don't have any desire to keep eating, even though like this is a beautiful steak and I know I should eat it all. I just don't know how I'm going to do that. Like I remember sitting and looking at it and being like, that just looks like so much work. I don't know how I'm ever going to eat that. So I share that with you because I think that is like a really true experience when you're on these things. What does Michelle says? Michelle says, I wish I could give to my kids at dinner so they stay full and don't ask to eat as soon as we're done and for bedtime. Yeah. You know, having my boys really focus on meat has really cut down on their snacking. I mean, that's like a human thing too. Sorry if my earrings are messing up the sound. Okay. So it's working in great ways. It's telling our brain we're full. It's telling our stomach we're full. It's shutting down glucagon, so we're not getting starch released into the blood. And it's turning on insulin to, again, remove excess blood sugar. Okay, so then it also, I got this from a website. It says, and I also include all the sources from where I source things, but it says patients with diabetes frequently have a deficient glucagon response to hypoglycemia and exhibit an inappropriately high glucagon response to a meal. This dysregulation has been attributed in part to a lack of intra-isolate insulin, but the exact pathological mechanism remains controversial. So basically they're saying, besides them being insulin resistant, they also have this issue with glucagon. So it's just like this massive sugar mess of starch and sugar, your body constantly turning them on, you eating it, your body not knowing what to do with it. Again, this goes back to our cells not being optimized. Okay. I just have this ability to write a lot, so I'm just like trying. So this was last week's video that you can see here, and that's where we went over BPC 157. Okay, so what is the GLP-1 signal peptide? So the GLP-1 hormone is created in the small intestine. It is a 30 amino acid peptide hormone produced in the intestinal epithelial endocrine L cells by differential processing of proglucagon, the gene that is expressed in these cells. So again, I don't know what all that means, to be quite honest, without like doing a picture of it. But basically, GLP-1 prevents more glucose from going into your bloodstream. So we want more of it. We don't apparently make very much of it. And as we age, we apparently make less of it. And the other problem with our own GLP-1 that we make is that it has like a super duper short half-life. So like only 10 to 15% of what's made is actually even getting into our circulation uptake. So you can understand that like all of these things are fighting against us as we age, but also people who have obesity already or obesity in their family, they're already going to have these like massive hurdles that they're fighting inside their body that they do not know that they're fighting. And so I think, because I don't believe in this like fat positivity thing. I think that's just like telling people that's like euthanasia to me. But I don't believe in it because I think there's tools, and I don't look at those people and think it's completely your fault that you're so fat. No, there are like actual things going on in their bodies that they don't know how to control. Okay. So like I said earlier, I tried liraglutide, which is Saxenda, and I tried semaglutide, which you might know as the brand Ozempic. So those two are both GLP-1s, okay, agonists. Tirzepatide, which usually you hear in this mix, was essentially added onto. So it's a GLP-1 with a GIP receptor agonist. So and tirzepatide you'll see as branded as Mounjaro. I've not tried that one. Honestly, I don't feel like I need to, although I want to just to be able to speak to it. I have a feeling that it would work exactly the same as semaglutide worked on me. And I love knowing that it's available and out there. And if I ever feel like my weight is out of control, then I'm like, all right, let's plug me into that tirzepatide bottle. But okay, so the thing that kind of makes tirzepatide special, it does everything that the semaglutide does, and it also has the longer half-life like the semaglutide, so you can do the injection once weekly rather than every day like liraglutide. So I really don't think we're really going to see much more of liraglutide. I don't know who wants to inject themselves every day and feel the nausea every day, because that's the one thing with the semaglutide, you feel the nausea about 48 hours after you inject, but then you're fine. Okay, so it just makes your life better because you're not feeling the nausea every day or the tiredness every day. Now, the tired or the lethargy that you will experience on these comes from the fact that you're not hungry, comes from the fact that you are not eating as much. So it's not that the drug is making you tired, it's the lack of calories, okay? So, I mean, it's just, that's what it is. If you were able to pound a ton of food on it, you probably wouldn't feel tired, but then you also wouldn't lose weight. Okay. Okay, so I did find this really cool piece of artwork on how the GLP-1s work in the body, but it's a little above me too. I was trying to follow it, but I think you should look at it on the website when we post it, because I think it is kind of a great breakdown of how the path is going. So again, these are triggering insulin release from your pancreas. They block glucagon secretion, and they slow stomach emptying, which slows your digestion and means your body releases less glucose. So that's the other thing. When you slow the digestion process, that means your body is breaking down food slower, which means that the sugar you do take in is not all impacting your bloodstream at the same time. So it slows down how you absorb in sugar into your blood. So that's giving your body more time to process with insulin, taking the blood sugar out, or just keeping your blood sugar in a homeostasis. Like maybe it slows it down so much that you don't even have to turn on insulin, right? Like what happens is, like, if you can slow it down, so whatever you ate is being picked up slower, now all of a sudden you don't have this huge surge of sugar and you have to kick on the insulin, and the insulin's like trying to get it all out of the blood, and now not all of your receptors are working. So it's like, I don't know, make more insulin. We can't get into the cells as fast as we need to. Okay. So then it's increasing how full you feel after eating. So by acting on the brain, it really creates this, satiety, or being very satiated after you have eaten a little bit. And that's an amazing feeling. You know what it's like to eat an entire plate of food and be like, why am I still hungry? Like, nothing makes sense. Why would I still be hungry? I just ate a ton. I should not still want more food. But there is something that somehow gets screwed up for some of us in our brains, and that satiating factor is like constantly missing. Okay. Excuse me. Am I getting like sick? I hope not. Okay. So they synthesize the GLP-1, right? And that's what we're injecting, and it's mimicking this hormone. So an agonist is just something in medicine that mimics something that our body creates or does naturally. So the GLP-1 medications bind to the GLP receptors to trigger the effects of the GLP-1 hormone. The higher dose of the GLP-1 agonist has more extreme effects. So like as you dose up on the semaglutides or the tirzepatides, you're going to get just more of this effect, right? More satiation, less hunger. That's one of the things that I loved about being on it, was that I never felt these massive spikes in energy or crashes. Like it stabilizes your blood sugar so well because of the slow emptying of your gastric situation and the intake of the food, that you really feel very normal, like your mood is balanced. And they've talked about that too. Other pro side effects are helps with depression, helps with psychological addictions even, because it balances your blood sugar, and I think really helps give a lot of people a peace, like a very stable peace feeling. The other thing I loved about it when I was on it was that all of the food noise was completely gone. So that was amazing. Okay, wait. Carrie says, Kim, I can't recall before you started lifting weights where besides your butt did you see most muscle loss? Arms, ass. So for me, I think because I was always doing yoga, even while I was taking the semaglutides and stuff, I feel like I lost a lot of fat on my arms, and what it did was it just like, I'm sure I lost muscle. I don't think it just targets your butt. It's just that your butt is the biggest muscle you see, and so when that starts to shrink down, even though other things are shrinking in probably the same proportion, you just notice the butt really drop. And we have like skin back there. So also as you're losing fat and you're losing muscle, you have this volume here. And so I think people freak out about the butt drop in particular, because it just looks so much more noticeable than other places where I'm sure I compromised muscle. I felt like my arms got really cut while on it. But again, I already had muscle there. You just could never see it because of that great adipose lining. Okay. So, okay. Yeah. So, I talked about this, how our own GLP-1 has like such a short half-life that we're only getting 10 to 15% of it, which is why when they synthesized the GLP-1s, and first you had liraglutide and it could last 24 hours, right? That's why you have to inject it every day. But then they came out with semaglutide, and semaglutide lasts 7 days, and so does tirzepatide. So that impact is felt longer. You don't have to inject as often. It just makes living your life so much easier. And when I was tapering off of semaglutide, if you ever watch that video, I would only do it like once a month, and it would last the entire month of just feeling really empowered. And I still feel really empowered with food. Like I'm 3 months off of semaglutide. And I know a lot of people are always like, oh, well, you have to be on the rest of your life. And once you get off of it, you're just going to blow up. And, like I have those personal concerns, obviously, especially like the fact that I share my life so openly. And I have these personal concerns of like, oh, what if you go on vacation and you just blow up, from eating stuff? Or what if all of a sudden your ice cream addiction returns? Like I have those concerns, I do. But I feel like once I got off semaglutide, I really had this desire to take care of my body, which I really hadn't been taking care of it prior. I was more like abusive to it. And so I think like with that refocus, and also, and I've shared this in posts and stuff, but I think it's really hard to go to the gym and want to lift when you're like looking in the mirror and you're like, I don't like what I'm seeing. I come here all the time. It's not changing. Like things like that. Like it's just hard to stay motivated doing that. And by using semaglutide to like drop a ton of weight off and see the cut, it made me feel like, oh, yeah, it's like so much more rewarding to go there because now I can see it growing. I can see the pump on it. I like how it looks. Like it's such a different mind and body feeling and body awareness that, again, as I've shared, there is nothing special about my genetics, about my body. I've been through it all to get here. So I truly do believe that if you want, a figure like mine or your ideal figure, whatever that is, I think you truly can get there because these GLP-1s are just really that powerful. Okay, so for instance, there's a lot of studies that have been done comparing liraglutide, for instance, to semaglutide, and really the liraglutide does not hold a candle to how effective the semaglutide is. So I don't know, if you go see a practitioner and they suggest the liraglutide, I'd be like, don't waste my time. Don't waste my time or my money. No. I'm going to do at least semaglutide, if not tirzepatide. And I think now that tirzepatide is out and readily available, you might just skip semaglutide and go straight to tirzepatide because it has this, I'll get to it, this GIP addition. So so the tirzepatide has the GLP-1, which is found in your small intestine, right? But then it also has this GIP. And the GIP is another hormone, and it is all about storing fat or where it stores it. And so apparently putting those together, you're getting a much better effect on where you're storing fat as you block glucagon releasing and you get insulin going. And then your brain feels like you're satiated. And, it seems like it might be more effective. And it is. Like using tirzepatide resulted in a weight loss of 17.8% compared to 12.4% with semaglutide. So, yeah, it's over 5% more effective at weight loss. So if you're going to look into doing one of these, you might as well do the most effective one because they all have the same side effects. They're all going to cause nausea. They're all going to slow down your digestion. Slowing down your digestion is what slows down the blood sugar hitting your bloodstream. So these are not things to be concerned about. It's working exactly how it's supposed to work. Okay. Okay. Just skipping around my notes. I don't know if this is interesting. Okay. So I wrote a conclusion, but I don't think that I need to read that to you guys. That'll all be on the website. But I think I've covered it all. I can now do some questions and come up closer to the phone and see if I can read any. Okay, yeah. So Jean says, I did liraglutide, had okay results. I have semaglutide. Yeah, it'll be night and day. I'm telling you, it's going to be night and day. Estella says, Kim, thank you for all this information. The side effects of semaglutide are horrible. We are 100% right. We are healing our bodies. Thank you so much. Yes, and so I'm so glad you wrote that, and that brings me around. So, you know how I said insulin is just the Band-Aid peptide for this obesity epidemic? It is. But when you get onto these GLP-1s, they actually reverse all of this. They aid in bringing down your inflammation. There's a ton of systemic byproducts of using these because number one, getting your weight down makes your heart healthier. It makes you feel better. You can't tell me that someone who feels horrible about themselves and can't get weight off, and all of a sudden they take an injection and they're dropping 20, 30 pounds. You can't tell me that that sense of empowerment, that belief in themselves that they are actually going to get better isn't a highlight for them, isn't powerful for them. Like our brains, the way we think about ourselves, what motivates us, these are all very impactful things. And so I think like mood improves, sleep improves. And again, we're going back to the cell and optimizing the cell again. And so even though I got off semaglutide, that doesn't mean that the work and the cell optimization that I experienced while I was on it for those 6 months didn't happen or isn't still benefiting me, right? Like they are cumulative benefits. So that's why I love peptides. That's why I like talking about them and sharing with you guys, because I really do. I love it when I find something crazy effective, and I think they really are. Did I get crepey skin? I mean, kind of, yeah. Like I would say like here, the skin is looser, but again, the longer you stay at the weight that you want to get it to, which is what I am, and then lifting, there'll be autophagy as well. So meaning that there'll be cellular breakdown of this loose skin to restructure it. Now, it depends on how much you have. Obviously, when you see people lose a ton of weight from a gastric sleeve or something like that, and they were really large, usually they do get skin removed because that skin is just so beyond anything the body is going to be able to retract. But, you know, if you are lifting, doing things like hot yoga that really cleanse the skin, inducing these autophagy concepts, intermittent fasting, those kinds of things help tighten up skin. I'm watching this in class. Oh my gosh, I love these. Okay, Judy says, I am on it, lost 25 pounds, work out hard with weights, and I hate the crepey skin I got from it. Oh man. I mean, it's not like I love it, but like, I don't think it's abnormally crepey for my age. I wouldn't say that I'm like a nice 20-year-old whose skin is like nice and thick, you know, and just like super smooth. But I don't think it's as bad as I feared. Okay. And my legs, honestly, I don't have any crepey skin on them. The only place that it feels still a little loose is on the backside. But honestly, I need to take another picture, but you know, I'm off of Instagram for a while. But maybe in April, that will be my return post. I'll do the butt side by side again. And I'll be like, check it out. It's improving. Okay. I keep on saying there must be a peptide for that, meaning crepey skin. Oh, yeah. Oh, Judith says Go Pure is great for her neck. Okay. I don't know if I know what Go Pure is. Is that a cream or something? I find for my neck, the best thing has been just weight loss, weightlifting, and just like I haven't even microneedled my neck in a while. And I feel like it's gotten a lot firmer and tighter. And I was afraid that if I lost, you know, those 25 pounds, would it cause like so much drop in my neck? But it really hasn't, I don't think. I mean, it's not like it's like perfect or anything, but I think it looks appropriate for my age. I think all of the stuff that I've experienced on my skin and everything, like I think it looks appropriate for my age, so it doesn't stress me out. It's not like I'm around 20-year-olds all the time and feel like they have this like amazing skin and I'm like got the old skin, you know what I mean? Like I feel like my skin is very appropriate for my age. What did I do for hair loss? So I just I don't know if you saw on Instagram, I did a post about I think I actually put it here too. I did a post about my water, and I was just literally downing those Mary Ruth liposomal vitamins. And I did get my hair cut, so I think that made it look less stringy. And I started taking a bunch of different hair like vitamins. And then also I've been injecting the peptides, and some of them like BPC 115, so BPC 157, CJC 1295, and TB 500, they can help with hair because they help with cellular turnover and muscle tissue growth. So I think those things in tandem have all helped, but it's also been time. And the thing to remember, and I keep saying this, is that I already grew a lot of hair. So genetically, I knew my hair would come back. It would just take time. So I'm doing these things to like aid it, but probably if I didn't do anything, to be quite honest, my hair would still return. But I just want to make it as good as possible. Oh, thank you guys. Oh, almost all the vitamins you need are in fresh beef and butter. 100% Henry, and that's what we eat. I'll have hamburger and steak today, butter. I always, like if I'm doing tea and I have cream or something, I always do full fat. Like we do full fat everything here, just no sugar. So I 100, and just so you know, and I learned this forever ago when I wanted to get pregnant with our first son, and it wasn't hard, but I was like reading those magazines and stuff. And one of the things that stood out to me, because I was always like a full fat person, like I do not do low fat things. I think it's a joke. I thought it was a joke back then, but what they said, especially for women who want to get pregnant, eating full fat dairy really helps in hormone optimization, and you need your hormones to be working perfect, right, to get pregnant. That's right. New here, what are recommending peptides for weight loss? Yeah, so summertime, welcome. I just completed my walkie-talkie, and I'm actually gonna close down now. I walked slower today, you guys, so we only did 3.5 miles. But yes, so I just covered the GLP-1s, and once this processes, we'll keep it here, and you can go back and watch it. But basically, I explained like how semaglutide, liraglutide, and tirzepatide work in our body specifically, and how insulin and glucagon work with regulating blood sugar, and why the GLP-1s are so effective at weight management. So I hope that helped you guys. Thank you for joining me. And thank you so much for the gift. That was so nice and unexpected. So anyways, we'll let YouTube take half of it. But I love you guys. And Michelle, my birthday's on Friday. So I'm a March 8th baby. I'm a Pisces, and I'm super excited. So if you don't know Jason, we're going to go spend the night in San Francisco. I'm going to go clubbing because I do like to dance and club it up as a 42-year-old. So that should be fun. Anyways, you guys, appreciate you so much, and I'll see you soon. Bye. Oh, I know one thing I was going to say. I don't know if I'm going to have the scalp spa video ready for tomorrow. And because I've been trying to lessen my anxiety and my stress on not meeting deadlines, I'm going to start the edit today, but I spent a long time preparing for this live because I think that these lives are super beneficial to me and to you. I love doing them. So I've been spending a lot of time, multiple days, doing these notes and prepping. And so I'll probably not make the debut of the scalp video tomorrow, but just know that will be the next video. And I don't know when I'm going to get it out, but I'll work on it. Anyways, you guys, okay. I have 4 sons. All right. Bye, you guys. How do I end it?